All right, so we're just gonna initialize like a project. So last time we installed Yarn and a bunch of other stuff, and this time we're gonna actually start our project. And I'm saying project like pretty loosely. I mean like any number of things, but basically like we're gonna make a web app, and that's gonna be our project. So you need to store that web app in some sort of like directory, and it's basically just a folder. So we're gonna make our folder, and we're gonna start like our project, and we're going to use Yarn to do that.
I'm going to think of this project as a folder that sits on my desktop, and it contains all of the ingredients to cook up the beautiful web app we're putting together.
That's perfect. So to do that, we're going to start in our terminal, which we are.
Fresh terminal here.
Wherever you want the directory to live. I don't know where that must be, but we can just do it in your home folder.
I just promised the desktop.
Okay, cool. Let's do desktop. And then so let's make our directory. Usually use make dir, mkdir, and then let's just, call it whatever you want, Ben site or project or whatever.
How about GreatBit?
That's perfect. Very fitting. And then so go into GreatBit. So cd GreatBit. Okay, gotta give it access.
cd GreatBit. I'm in. ls, nothing in there.
Nothing in there. So this is just an empty folder. Same thing. If you went to Finder on your desktop, you'd see this folder. And now that we have Yarn installed, we can use Yarn, which is a package manager, to like initialize our project. And that doesn't mean much, but let's just do it, and we'll see what happens. So do yarn init, init. And so now you're going to get like a series of questions. It's not super critical that you answer these in any certain way because we can always edit them later. But so you can kind of just do defaults. So you can press enter. GreatBit's a good name. Version 1's fine. Enter.
When kids are born, we start them at 0. It always throws me for a loop.
It is kind of, I mean, you could do whatever. We could change that later too. Okay. Description, not required, but you can add one if you want, or we can add it later. Exactly. Cool. Entry point, just that's fine. Leave that. Leave that. And you can put Ben and Tanner or whatever you want. Yep. And MIT license is good. Also fine. Leave that. No, I'll just leave it. Just leave it. Just leave it. Cool. So it saved bless you. It saved a package.json file. And what does that even mean? So let's open up this directory in a code editor instead of, so yeah, you can see it. So it's the only thing we did was add this file. That's like all we did with yarn init. But that file is actually pretty important for our whole JavaScript node project, everything. So open up this directory in VS Code or whatever,
I feel like half, maybe 2/3 of programming is just seeing things, and if VS Code helps me see things more clearly, it makes me happy.
Totally.
So I'm gonna exit out of the welcome and then click into package.json.
Perfect. Yeah. So this is all we made, and this is all we have currently. But what the package.json. So also again, I should say that if you did npm init, you would get the same sort of result.
Mm-hmm.
Just as like a but yeah, so right now this doesn't tell us that much besides just some like random info, but later it'll be super important when we start installing other packages. So like if we want to add something to this project, it'll end up getting put into the package.json as like a dependency, it's called.
Mm-hmm.
And dependencies basically is saying that like this project uses this other package that somebody else made and it depends on it. And so obviously we don't have that now, but that's essentially what this package.json is trying to do.
Sweet.
And then the last thing that is like kind of a good practice, especially because like I was saying in a previous video that there are so many versions of different things out there, that in the package.json file you can add a requirement for the type of node and the type of yarn that you're using. just so if other people pick up this project, they can see like, oh, this was built with Node version 14 and Yarn version whatever. And to do that, we're gonna add another field. So below license, do comma, yep, and then type engines, and then colon, and then an object. So open brackets, and then open it up. And for the first one, so press enter, sorry. And for the first one, do yarn. So, yep. In parentheses, JSON is finicky.
In parentheses?
And yep.
Or quotations, you mean?
Yeah, that's what I mean. Don't do parentheses. Colon, and then the version of yarn we're using. So you might have to check. So if you open up terminal, you can do it actually in VS Code too. You can also go here, it doesn't matter.
And what would you yarn v?
Yep. And so copy and paste that guy in there.
1.22.10.
I think that also has to be in not parentheses in quotations. But I would actually take out the 10 at the end and just put X. Because it's a minor version. It's probably both the 1 and the 0, and just replace it with X. So yeah. And which is basically saying that like it's okay to have a minor version that's different than 1.22 as long as it's.
We'll take anything that starts with 1.22. You're on your own after that.
Yep, exactly. And let's do the same thing with Node. That's probably the more important one, honestly. But yep. So do Node and then check the version and add it in there.
V14.16.1.
1416X.
It's .x.
Mm-hmm.
Cool.
Yeah. And you can, I think, remove the V. That might actually be fine. I don't know though.
Like it.
Yeah. So that's it. And again, this is like not a required step, but also can be helpful if other people are working on the project, because one, it's sort of like documenting the type of node and yarn that you're using, and two, if you actually use yarn, it will restrict you from using other ones. If you use npm, I don't think it actually does restrict you. I've run into that before where I thought it did, but it doesn't. It still doesn't matter. You can do whatever you want. So that's another reason I kind of like yarn better, is because it will actually restrict you from using a different version than those two.
Cool.
That's it.
Great.